Hey everyone, my name is Faizan Khan and welcome back to the second part of this text editor using Python. So in the previous part, we completed our GUI part. So this is how the GUI looks of this application. And now let's work on the functionality part. Okay, so firstly, let's work on the functionality part of these two combo boxes. So how these will work actually. Suppose if I write my name here, okay, and if I try to set any font style for this particular text, so this style should be set on this text, okay, and similarly when I change the font size, that should reflect here, right? So let's see how we can do it. So basically what we will be doing, we will simply be binding these two combo boxes to a function. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we will be doing the functionality part at the top here just after these import lines. So here you can provide a comment that this is the functionality part like this. Okay, so as I told you that we will be binding the combo boxes to a function. So whenever you will select any style in through the combo box, that function will be called and the styling change will take place. Okay, so first of all, let's see this font family combo box, the functionality of this one. So just after creating the combo boxes, here I will simply bind it. So we will use this object variable font family combo box dot bind method, and to this bind method we'll have to pass like this combo box selected. Okay, so whenever you will select any font family, okay, inside this combo box, then this function will be called that we are going to write here. Okay, so function name could be font underscore style like this, or any name of your choice, right? So right now you see this red line because this function is not yet defined. So let's define it, and we'll be defining it here inside this functionality part. So here I'm going to write def font underscore style. Okay, so inside this function, firstly we will get the font style that the user will select. Okay, and how can we get that? We will get that with the help of a variable that we have passed inside that combo box, if you remember. So let me just show you where I have created the combo box. So this is the font family combo box, right? Here if you remember, I have passed this text variable font family variable, right? So inside this variable only the font style will be stored. So whatever the user will select, that font style will be stored inside this variable only. Okay, so I'm going to use this variable to get what the user has selected. So I'll write font family variable dot get method, and this will give us the font style that I can store in some variable font style like this. And then simply I need to update my text area with this particular font style. So we'll use config method to update anything on our text area. So here we need to update the font, right? So first thing we pass is a style. So style is inside this variable only. So we'll simply pass this variable here, font style. Then we pass font size. So for that also I'm taking a variable, but you will see error here because this variable is not yet defined. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define this variable here outside of this function. So by default the size will be 12 only. So you see the error is now gone. If I run this now, so if I write my name here and try to change the font style, we will be getting an error here. So if I close this window, you see here we are getting error that this function takes 0 positional arguments but 1 was given. So when you select a font style, some value is passed, okay, through that combo box. So I need to receive that inside this font style function. So that value we can receive in any variable. It can be any variable name. So I'll take variable as event. Okay. So always remember, whenever you bind a combo box to a function, you have to pass any variable to that particular function definition. Okay. So now if I run it, if I write my name again and try to change the font style here, you can see the style is changing here. Okay. So this is the way of changing the font style of the text that is on the text area. Okay. In the same way, we need to change the font size. So for that also, we'll firstly define a function, font underscore size. Okay. And here also again we'll pass this event variable, because we will be binding that font size combo box to a function, right? And here this time we will get the font size. Okay. So I'll store that in this variable, font size variable. Okay. And we have used size variable there inside that combo box, if you remember. So we'll simply get it. Okay. So this will give whatever size the user will select, and that will simply be stored inside this font size variable. If I simply print this variable just to show you what is inside this variable, if I run this code, if I select some size here, like for example 78, so you will see on the console, oh, but 78 is not printed here. The reason is because we haven't called this function. So we have just defined it, but we also need to call it. So here what we will do, we'll simply use this font size combo box object variable. So we'll write font size combo box dot bind method, and again we need to pass the same thing, that combo box is selected. So combo box selected. Okay. And I will bind this to a function, and the function name is font underscore size, like this. Okay. Now if I run it, okay, I'm getting an error, badly formed. Okay, so I have to add this here, like this. Okay. Now if I run it again, so if I select some font size, suppose 78, you will see on the console 78 getting printed, right? So if you remember, to this font size combo box, we had passed this text variable with the name size variable. Okay. And it was int variable, integer variable, right? So this variable I'm using to get whatever the user will select as a size. Okay. And that will simply be stored inside this variable. Now what I have to do, I have to change the size of our text which is written on our text area. So what we'll do, we'll use this text area dot config method, and here we'll simply update the font. So first thing is styling. So styling would be whatever the user will select. Okay. And that styling is inside this particular variable, right? So if I try to use this variable here, font style, you can see it's showing red line because this variable is not accessible by this function. Okay. This variable is only limited to this function only. Okay. We cannot access this variable inside some other function until and unless we make this variable as global. So what we have to do, we'll have to firstly write global keyword and then the variable name, like this. Okay. Now its value can be used in some other function. Okay. But we also need to define it globally. So we'll write font style, and initially I'll provide Arial as the style. Okay. So initially this variable has Arial, then whatever the user will select, that style will go inside it. Suppose the user selects Times New Roman, so Times New Roman will be inside this variable. Okay. Since I have made this variable as global, so this value can now be accessed inside this function as well. Okay. So now the font for the text will remain Times New Roman only, and the size of the text is inside this variable, that I will simply pass here, font size, like this. And if you see, this variable and this variable both are same, so I will use this value inside this function. So what is the way? Again, I need to make this variable as global, so we'll write global font size, like this. So whatever size the user will select from here, this size will also reflect inside this function. Okay, but if you won't make it global, let's see what will happen. So if I run this code, if I write my name, if I change its size, okay, see, the size is changed. Now if I try to change the styling here, you can see once I change the styling, the size of the text is again set to 12. Okay, because if you see, font size is assigned 12 initially, and this font size is getting set here, that is 12. Okay, but what I want, if the user has changed the font size, right? So the changed font size is inside this font size variable, right? So I want to use this value inside this function. So in order to use this value inside some other function, I'll have to make it global, like this. So once you make it global, now suppose if you'll select 78, so this 78 value will be shown here if you'll choose some other font style, right? Similarly, if you'll select some font style, that font style will be reflected here. Okay, now if I run this code, if I write something, okay, if I change the styling, you can see the styling is changed, and similarly the font size is changed. Okay, now I can change back to some other font style, like this. Okay, and the font size is still the same. So I hope you understood it, how this is done. And now after this, we need to do the functionality of this bold button. So what I want, when I click on this bold button, this text should be bold, and if I click on it again, this text should become normal, right? So let's see how we can do it. So again, we need to create a function. Okay, so we'll define a function, bold underscore text. Okay, because we are trying to make the text as bold inside this function. Okay, and also we need to call this function. So from where we will call this? So I want this function code to be executed whenever I will click the bold button, right? So we'll simply search the bold button where we have created that bold button. You see here we have created it. So here we'll simply pass a command equals to bold text, like this, without parenthesis. So whenever you are going to click on this bold button, this particular function will be called, and whatever code that you will write here, that code will simply be executed. Okay, so for example, if I try to print hello here, okay, so once I'll click the bold button, you will see on the console hello getting printed. Okay, so this is how this works. So let's add the functionality of this bold button here instead of printing. So firstly, we will try to get the font of our text area. So what is the way? So if you remember, we had imported this font module which helped in getting the font families, right? So this will also help in getting the font of this text area. Okay, complete font, whether the text is bold or italic or underline, everything. Okay, what is the size and all. So what I will do here, I will use this module font. Okay, then I will use one of the class which is font in capitals, and to this class we'll simply pass font keyword argument, and here we need to get the font of text area, right? So we'll pass text area, and in square brackets we'll pass font as a key. Okay, let me store it in some variable like text property. Okay, text property is nothing but how the text is actually. Okay, and then we also need to use actual method. Okay, so this will complete thing will give us the text property like what is the font style, whether the text is bold, italic or underline, everything. Okay, that will be stored inside this text property variable and we can print it simply. So if we print this variable to see what is inside it, so if I click on this bold button, so you can see the family is Arial. Okay, size of the text is 12, weight is normal, slant is Roman, underline is 0 and a OS strike is 0. So this is nothing but a dictionary, right? Dictionary data type in Python. Okay, so this text property is containing a dictionary. So initially, if you remember what font style we have provided to this text area. So if you go to this text area, so here if you see the font style is Arial and size is 12. This is what we are getting here, Arial and size is 12. So right now by default the text is normal, but if we would have provided bold here, we would have seen bold here. Okay, similarly if we would have provided italic, then we would have seen italic here. Similarly underline. So since this text property is nothing but a dictionary, right? So how can we access this normal, which is a value? We can access it with the help of this key, which is weight here. Okay, similarly we can access this value with the help of this key. Similarly we can access this value with the help of this key. So how can we do it? So we'll write if text property and in square brackets we'll mention weight. Okay, if this is equals to bold, so what it means that the text on the text area is bold. Okay, so if the text is bold, then we will change it to normal, and if it is normal, then we'll change it to bold. Okay, so firstly let me do it for normal. So because currently the text is normal by default, so if the text is normal, then this condition will become true. In that case I will simply change the text to bold. So we'll use this text area dot config method, and here we'll simply update the font. So the styling will be nothing but this font style variable only. Okay, because the styling will be inside this variable only, whichever the user will select, and similarly the font size will be inside this variable. Okay, and then whether we want it bold, italic or underline. So if it's normal, we want it to be bold, right? So we'll simply pass bold here like this. Similarly we'll check another condition. So we'll simply copy these two lines and we'll paste here. We'll check that if weight is bold. So if weight will be bold, then in that case we'll make the text as normal like this. Okay, now if I run this, if I write some text here, if I increase its size, okay, now if I click on it, we are getting error here because I have written wrong spelling of weight here. So it's WEI, okay, not WIE, like this. Now if I run it again, if I write my name, if I increase its size, okay, now if I click on it, you can see the text has become bold. If I click on it again, you can see it is changed to normal style. Okay, similarly if you choose some other font style, then also you can make that bold and similarly make it back to normal by clicking on it again. Now in the same way we will do it for italic button. Okay, so again we will define a function def italic underscore text. Okay, and again we'll get the property, text property of the text which is inside text area. So this is the way. So we'll simply paste it here like this. Okay, and again we'll check the condition that if text property, and this time instead of weight what will pass here, will pass slant. Okay, so if slant is normal, sorry, not normal but Roman. Okay, so if slant is no Roman, then we'll have to change it to italic, and if slant is italic, then we'll have to change it to Roman. So we'll simply copy this line again and we'll paste here, and if slant is italic, then we'll simply change it to Roman, like this. Okay, I hope you are able to understand this. It's very easy. Firstly, we are simply getting the text area text property, right? Then we are checking that if the text is Roman, it means normal. Then we'll simply change the text area font to italic, and if the text area font is already italic, then we'll change it to Roman, means normal. Okay, now after defining this function, now we need to call it. So we'll call it from the italic button only. Okay, so we'll go to italic button, and here we'll pass command equals to italic text without parenthesis. Now if I run this code, if I write some text here, if I change the size so that you can see it clearly, now if I click on this italic, you can see it's italic. Now if I click on it again, you can see it's now Roman. So this is how it works. Okay, so these two buttons are done. Now in the same way we'll do it for underline. So in case of underline, you saw that it gives basically the values as 0 or 1. So if it's 0, that means no underline is there, and if there is a value 1, then it means there is an underline. So what I'll do, I'll simply copy this function and I will paste here, because the function almost has similar functionality. So this time this function name will change to underline text. Okay, and here the key will be underline, and we'll compare it that if this results in the value 0. Okay, if this gives value as 0, then we'll simply write underline here. Okay, we'll change the text to underline, and if this gives us value as 1, it means it's already underlined. We'll change it to normal. Okay, so we won't pass anything like this. Okay, so now if I run it, I think I made a mistake, but let's see. So if I write my name and I click on this, see, it's not working. Why it's not working? Because first thing, we have not called it. So let's call this function. So we'll call it from the underline button only. So I'll pass command equals to underline text without parenthesis. Now let me run again my name. If I click on this underline, you can't see this underline. Okay, the reason is because we have to pass these values without quotes. Okay, so these are normal integer values. This would be 0 and this would be 1, like this. Now if I run it, if I write my name, if I click on underline, you can see, now we can see underline. If I unclick it, so it's back to normal. Okay, so this is how it's working. So I hope you are able to understand it. So these three buttons functionality is done. In the same way we will do it for this color button. Okay, so what we want basically, when I click on this color button, we should see a color chooser dialog box where we will see a lot of colors, okay, from which we can choose any color of our choice. Okay, so once we select the color, that color should be reflected here on this text. Okay, so let's see. So in order to see the color chooser dialog box, we need to import it. So the way is just like we imported this font, in the same way we'll import color chooser. Okay, like this. So from tkinter we'll import color chooser. Once you import it, now you can use this module. So here firstly we need to define a function color select, Okay, it can be any function name, it's up to you. Then we will use this module color chooser dot ask color method. Okay, and this will return us something. Let's see what it returns. So I will store that in some variable color. Okay, and then I will print this variable so that you can see what is inside this variable. Okay, and also we need to call this function, so let's go to that color button. Okay, so where we have created that, yeah, so it's here. So here we will simply pass command equals to color select like this without parenthesis. Now if I run it, if I click on this color chooser, you can see we are getting this color chooser dialog box here. If we select any color, for example orange, if I click on this OK button, you will see on the console what it prints basically. So it's nothing but a tuple. Okay, so this variable is storing a tuple. Okay, this color variable is storing a tuple. Okay, and here we have two things. First thing is this RGB value. Okay, and the second thing is this hexadecimal code. These two are nothing but the colors only. So in order to see the change in our text color, we will have to use this second value of this tuple. Okay, and how can we access it? We simply need to pass in square brackets the indexing of it. So its indexing is 1 because at 0 we have this RGB value. So at index 1 we have this value, right? So what we have to do, we don't have to print anything, we just need to update our text area text color, right? So we'll write text area dot config method, and here we'll change the text color to color, and in square brackets we'll pass 1 as an index like this. Now if I run it, if I write some text, if I try to change the color to yellow, you can see the color is changed here. Okay, so now whatever you will write, that will be in yellow color. So after this, now we need to do the functionality of these three buttons. Okay, so first one is this left align button, then this right align, and this center align. So let's see how we can write the functionality for these three buttons, and the functionality would be almost similar in these three buttons. Okay, so what I want, whenever I write some text here, okay, if I click on this right alignment, this text from here should shift to the right hand side, and if I click on the center alignment, this text should come in the center, and similarly if I click on this left alignment, this particular text should go on the left hand side. Okay, so this is the functionality that we want. So let's see how we can create it. So here again we will be defining a function def align left like this. Okay, or let's firstly do it for align right. Okay, right alignment. So what we have to do, firstly we will pass this command, okay, this function to that particular button. So we'll go to that button, right align button, and here we will pass command equals to align right without parenthesis. Okay, once you do it, now we can come back to the function and we can write the functionality here. So first thing what we want to get whatever is written on our text area. Okay, and that I can store in some variable. So I'll write text area dot get method, and from start till end I will get everything, and that everything I will store in some variable data. Okay, so suppose if I type my name on my text area, so that name will go inside this data variable. Now what we have to do, now we have to simply set the justify. Okay, justify is simply used to place our text whether on the right hand side, in the middle, or on the left hand side. So we need to set it to the right hand side. Okay, so the way is we have to use this text area because the text is there inside this text area, right? So text area dot tag config method. Okay, with the help of this we configure the placement, right, of our text, whether you want it on the left, right, or at the center. So here we'll mention that we want the text on the right hand side. Okay, and here we'll mention the justify keyword argument and we'll set it to right, like this. Once you set the justify value, okay, next thing is that we need to delete everything. Once you are getting the data inside this data variable, now the data is inside this data variable, right? So we can delete that data. So what we'll do, we'll delete the data which will be either on the left or at the center, right? Then only you will use this right alignment, right? So what I'll do, I'll write text area dot delete, and from start till end I will delete everything. Okay, suppose the text is on the left hand side, so that left hand side text will get deleted. Okay, and the text is already there inside this data variable. From the text area the text will be deleted, and then we can simply insert this data on the right hand side. So what we'll do, we'll write text area dot insert method, and we'll simply insert what we have to insert. We have to insert this data, so we'll write data here, and where we want to insert that also we need to tell to this insert method that we want to insert to the right. Okay, so now if I run it and if I write the text here which is on the left hand side, if I click on this right alignment, you can see the text has moved to the right. So this is how this functionality works. I hope this is clear to you. So let me explain you once again what I have done. Firstly, I have get the data, okay, from the text area. So that data is there inside this variable. Okay, then I have simply changed the configuration of my text. Okay, so initially the text is left aligned, but I have changed it to right aligned. Okay, and then whatever text is there on the left hand side, I am simply deleting that. Okay, because I have already stored it inside this variable, and once the text is deleted from the left hand side, then I'm simply inserting this data text to the right hand side. Okay, so in the same way we will do it for center and the left align. So we have to write almost the same code, only a few things will change here. So I'll simply copy this function and I will paste here. So instead of align right, this time I'll change it to align left. Okay, so again we'll get the data first of all inside this data variable, and then we'll configure if it will be right align. Okay, if the text is right align, we'll change it to left align. Okay, and we'll justify the text to the left. Then again we'll delete the text from the right hand side. Okay, or if it's in center, so we'll delete the text from the center, and then we'll simply insert the data on the left hand side like this. So if I run this code, if I write some text on the left hand side, if I move it to the right first of all, and then if I click on this left align, you cannot see the text moving on the left. Why is that? Because we have created a function but we have not called it. Okay, so we need to call it, and we'll go back to that button, left align button, and here we simply need to pass command equals to align left. Okay, now let me run again. Let me write my name. If I move it to the right, and now if I click on this, you can see it's on left hand side now. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Now in the same way we'll do it for the center alignment button. So let me firstly pass the command here so that I don't forget this time. So command equals to align underscore center. Okay, this is the command name, and now let's define it. So we can define it just after this, right? So it will be defined in the similar way. So I'm simply going to copy it and we'll paste here. Then I can change the function name to align center. Okay, then tag config values will change here. So first thing, it will be center, then justify will also be center. Okay, so we are simply trying to tell our text area that we want the text in the center, so that's why we are writing justify center here. Okay, and then again, while we insert, then also we need to tell that we want to insert this particular data in the center. Okay, now if I run it, if I write some text, okay, if I click on this right side and then to the center, right to the left, and this way it will work. So I hope this is clear to you. Okay, if the text is in the center, you can continue typing in the center like this. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. And now let's move towards our menu bar. So we will try to add functionality for this file menu first of all. Okay, so here we have this new command, open, save as, and exit. Okay, so one by one we will see the functionality of all these commands. So first of all, let's see the functionality of this new command. So if you see here, we have created this new command, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to provide it a command. So whenever you will select this new option, I want some functionality to take place. Okay, so function name can be new file like this. So I need to define this function. So at the top we can define. Okay, so just after this we can define here. So I'll write dev new underscore file. So basically what we want in case of new file, so when I click on new option, whatever is there on our text area, that should simply get deleted. So I'll write text area dot delete method, and from start till end I will simply delete everything. Okay, so this is a single line of code. Let me just run it. So if I write something here, if I go to file and select this new, so you can see now we have a new file here. Okay, so later on if there will be any change, then we will come back to this function and we'll make that change. Okay, after this let's write a function for open file. Okay, so I'll write dev open underscore file. So let me firstly call this. Okay, so I'll go to that command open. Okay, and here I'll simply pass a command equals to open file like this. Okay, now what functionality do you want inside this open file function? Okay, so if I show you my original project, if I run this one, so what happens when I click on this open button or open command basically? So if I click on this open command, you can see a open dialog box appears here, right? And from here we can select any file or a document, okay, any text document that we want to open, and we'll simply click on this open, and that particular document text will simply be inserted on this text area, right? So this is the functionality we want. So I want, when I click on this open command, I should see a file dialog box. Okay, open file dialog box. So what I will do, I will use this file dialog, okay, which we have not imported yet. So you can see it's showing error here. Okay, so we need to import it. So the way is, we'll go at the top here and we'll write from tkinter, just like we imported font and color chooser. In the same way we can import file dialog. Okay, this is extension of this tkinter module. So this is the way of importing it. Once you import it, now you can use this ask open file name method, and to this method you need to mention your initial directory. It means when you open this ask open file dialog box, then which folder should be opened there. Okay, so what I will do, I will write initial dir equals to, so there is a module which is OS which help us to get the directory that we want as our initial directory. So our open file dialog box will be in that particular directory only. Okay, so how can we use it? Firstly, we need to import OS module. So import OS, this is an inbuilt module, so you don't have to install it. So here we'll simply write os dot get current working directory. Then when you see this open file dialog box, what should be the title at the top in the title bar? So that we can also set here. So title can be select file like this. Okay, and then which type of files you want to see. So we need to mention file types here. So we want to see text files. So in the form of parenthesis in strings, okay, we'll mention text file, comma, its extension which is txt. Okay, and all other files, let me move it to a new line, and all other files, so all files, okay, and its extension will be asterisk dot asterisk like this, and make sure you add it in the form of a string like this. Okay, so in the file types you will see the text file in which we are interested actually, and then other files if you want to see, then you will have to select all file option, then you will see all other files. Okay, and we need to add one more parenthesis here. Okay, like this. So this method will give us the URL of whichever file you will select. Okay, that I can store in some variable, for example URL, and then I can print it. So here I'll write print URL so that you can see what is inside this variable. If I run it, if I click on this open, you can see we are seeing the title here, select file, and then in file types you can see we are seeing text file option and then all files option. Okay, so with the help of all files you will be able to see all kind of files here, and if you'll select text file then you will only see text file. So right now there is no text file here, and you can also see our current working directory is opened here, which is our desktop. Okay, so as you can see there is no txt file on my desktop, but I can quickly create it. So I'll create a text document here, okay, with the name Khan. Okay, and this document is currently empty. So what I will do, I will simply select it and try to open it. So you can see what is printed here. So you can see what is inside this URL variable. Inside it, we have the complete path of our khan.txt file. Okay. So what we want basically, let me do one thing here. Let me open this file and add some text here. Okay. And let me simply save it. So this file is saved. Now this file has this text. Okay. If I go back to the code, so I hope you understood that this URL variable is containing the complete path of our text file, right? So now what we have to do, we have to open this particular file in the read format, okay, and then whatever is there inside that file, we have to simply get that on our text area. Okay, from there we have to take that data out and insert it on our text area. So how can we do it? So we will use open function here, and we have to pass the URL. Okay, that will be nothing but the complete file path. So URL, and we want this to be opened in read mode. So we'll pass R here. Okay, R stands for read. Okay, and this will give us the data that we can store in some variable data. Okay, so if I print this data variable so that you can see what is there inside it. So if I run this code, if I go to file, click on open command, select this file and open this file, so you will see what it is printing actually. So you can see what this data variable is containing. It is containing the name of the file, then what is the mode, and its encoding. Okay, so let me simply read its content. So for that we have to use this read method. Okay, now if I run it again, if I go to file, select open, select this file, open this file. Okay, if I close this window, you can see the text of this file is simply printed here. My name is Khan, right? But we don't have to print it. What we have to do, we have to insert this data inside our text area, right? So what we'll do, we'll write here, instead of printing, we'll write text area dot insert method. Okay, and at the starting position, okay, we want to insert. So we'll simply write data dot read method like this. Okay, so whatever data is there, that simply will be inserted on our text area. I hope you are getting it. Now if I run it, if I go to open, select file, click on open, you can see the text is inserted from that particular file to this text area. I hope this is clear to you. So if I show you one more thing, if I click on this file, open, and without selecting any file, if I simply click on this open button, you will see an error here. It says no such file or directly null. So what is happening? When you are not selecting any file inside this URL variable, we are not getting any path. Okay, so at that time inside this URL variable, we are simply getting this null string. Okay, that's why we are getting this error. So we can apply a condition here simply that if URL is not equals to null. Okay, so if inside this URL, sorry, this line has to be just below this, because you see at the end we have written this line, right? So I'll simply cut this line from here, and just below this I'll write here like this. Okay, so if URL is not equals to null, then only try to open the URL and try to insert the data. Okay, otherwise don't do it if the URL is null. So now we won't get any error. So just in order to avoid the error, I am doing this step. So if I click on open directly, now we won't be getting any error, right? So I hope this is clear to you. One more thing we can do, and that is if I select that Khan file, okay, if I open it, I want the file name should be written here instead of this title. Okay, so what we will do, we will simply update the title here. So once the file is opened, the content is inserted in our text area. After that, I will write that root dot title. We are simply updating the title of our window. Okay, and here the title would become os dot path dot base name. Okay, and here we'll simply pass the URL variable. So as I told you, this OS module is helpful in playing with the directories, in getting the directory name or the folder name or the file name. Okay, so this module help us in that. So what we are doing, we are simply writing os.path.base name, and we are simply passing the URL inside which we have the complete file path. Okay, so what this base name method will do, it will take out the file name only, like khan.txt. Okay, and this khan.txt will simply be set on our title. I hope you are able to understand it. What this os.path.base name method is doing, it is simply giving us the file name, actual file name, khan.txt in this case. So now if I run it, so instead of text editor title, you will see a different title when I will open the file. So now you can see the title is changed here. So this is what I wanted. I hope it's clear to you. So open file functionality is done, and now we want to save the file. Okay, so there can be two scenarios, like if the file is new. So suppose if I type some text here, okay, this is a new file, and if I try to click on the save button, so what I want, a save as dialog box should appear, okay, where we will mention the file name, and once we click on save, this data should be inserted in that particular file. Okay, the other scenario can be that if we have opened some existing file, in this case khan.txt, suppose I have opened this file, okay, and if I do some change here, like instead of my name is Khan, I'm writing my name is Faizan, and now if I click on the save button, so this time what I want to simply update that khan.txt file, right? I want to update that particular file. So there are two scenarios here. So let's see how we can add these two things in our functionality of save button, save command actually. Okay, so let's see. So firstly, we will define a function here, def save file. Okay, so here what we want, we will firstly check that if the URL, this URL is null or not. So if this URL is null, it means that it's a new file. Okay, means this is a new file, and this is not an existing file. If it will be an existing file, then inside this URL we will have complete path of the file. For example, in case of khan.txt, we were getting the complete path of khan.txt inside this URL variable, right? So what we want, we will check here inside this function that if URL is null or not. So if URL is null, it means it's a new file basically. Okay, and right now you see this red line here because we are trying to use this variable inside this function. As I told you, we cannot directly use any variable's value inside some other function. So the way is that we need to make this variable as global so that its value can be used in some other function. Okay, and so let me create a variable initially with the name URL, and initially it has null string, means nothing is inside this URL variable initially. Okay, then we are making this variable as global, so global URL. So why I'm making it global? So that its value, updated value, can be used inside this particular function, save as function. Okay, so I hope you are getting this. So firstly, this URL variable is containing nothing. Okay, then inside this open file, if you will open some file, then inside this URL variable, instead of null string, we will have some string, means some path of our file. Okay, and if I try to save that, okay, if I try to save that, then inside this URL variable we will get some path, right? But if it's a new file, if it's a new file, okay, then in the URL variable we have null string, right? So if the URL variable has null string, it means it's a new file, and if it's a new file, then what we will do, so we will firstly open a file dialog box which will be save as dialog box. So we'll use this file dialog module dot ask save as file. Okay, this method, and to this method we'll pass the mode, okay, that we want to write this time. Okay, so we'll pass mode as write. Then what will be the default extension? So default extension will be txt. Okay, so whenever you will save some file, so its default extension will be txt only. So if you are writing the name of your file as Khan, then you don't need to mention .txt. .txt will automatically be added to that file. So that's why we are mentioning default extension here. And then again we need to mention file types. So file types, so here we need to mention text file and its extension, which will be txt, and all other files. So I'll move it to a new line. So all files will be shown with the extension star dot star, like this. Okay, so there will be two file types. If you will select text file, you will only see text files. If you will select all files, you will see all the files that are there inside that particular directory. Okay, so if I run this code, since it's a new file, let me just write something. Since it's a new file, so inside that URL variable we will have null string. If I try to click on the save button, you don't see anything. The reason is because we have not called this function. So let's go to that save command. So it's here, and we need to pass command equals to save file, like this. Now if I run it again, if I write some text, click on that save button, so I'm getting some error here. We are getting this error because we have missed parenthesis. So if you see here, we need to add parenthesis here, like this. Okay, now it's fine. Let's run it again. If I click on the save button, you see we are getting this save as dialog box here. Okay, since it's a new file, that's why we are getting this save as dialog box. And right now nothing will happen, so we need to add more functionality here. So this save as file will also give you the URL that we can store in some variable save underscore URL. Okay, now if I print this value, if I run this code, you will see what is there inside it. If I write something, if I click on the save button, see, writing is right now not important because nothing is happening there. But if I click on the save button here, you will see something getting printed on the console. So it says none because we have not saved any file. So let me just try to save some file. Okay, if I write some text, if I click on the save button again, if I save it with name Faizan, if I click on the save button, this time you will see something getting printed. So this is giving the name, the complete path of Faizan.txt, its mode, it's in write mode, and then it's encoding. So what we need to do, we need to insert the data which is there on the text area inside this file, right? So what I will do here, I'll write text area dot get method, and from start till end I will get everything. Okay, and I will store that in some variable, for example content, or you can choose some other variable like data. Okay, and then to this save URL, okay, where we have the complete path of our file. Okay, to this we need to write the content which we have got from the text area. So we'll use this write method, and to this we'll simply pass the content. So once the content is inserted in the file, okay, then we can simply close this file. So we'll write save URL dot close method, like this. Now if I run it, so if I type something here, this is an interesting project. Okay, and now if I try to save this file, so if I click on save, we are getting the save as dialog box. Okay, if I write some name here, and before that if you see, this Faizan file was created, right, but there was no data inside it. If I try to open this file, you can see there is nothing inside it because at that time we had not written any data to this file. Okay, but now let's simply add some data to this data file. Okay, so the file name is data, and if I click on the save button, so this particular data is now inserted in that data file. If I show you on my desktop, so this is our data file. If I open it, you can see the data is inside it. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Now what if the URL is not none? It means it has some string, right? Means it has some path. So in that case, what should happen? So suppose you have opened some existing file. Okay, suppose, let me just run this code again. If I click on this open command, if I open this file, okay, so now if you see, when we are uh, clicking on that open command, so open file function is executing, and here inside this URL variable we are getting some file path. Okay, now if I try to save this, if I try to, suppose if I made some modification here, this is an interesting idea. Okay, if I had done this change here, and now if I try to save it, if I click on the save button, nothing is happening. Okay, nothing is happening. If I open this file, you will still see that same text only. This is an interesting project. So what I want, when I click on that save button, the updated text should be inserted inside this data file. So if there will be some URL inside this variable, we will simply go to the else part, and in the else part we will simply firstly get the content from the text area. Okay, and then we will open this URL in the write mode, and we will simply insert the content that we got from the text area inside that particular URL. Okay, let's see what I'm saying. So text area dot get method, from start till end we will get all the data. We can store that data in some variable like content. Okay, then we will simply open this URL, right? So we'll write open function like this, and here we will pass the URL. Then in which mode you need to open this file, so we want to open it in write mode. Okay, so this is nothing but our file, so I'll store it in this file variable, and then we need to write this content to this file. Simple. So we'll write file dot write method, and we'll simply pass the content variable like this. Now if I run it, so if I open some existing file here, suppose this one, so you see there is no data inside it. Let me add some data, let me add some random data here. Okay, now if I click on this save button, so now what you will see, if I open this fezan.txt file, inside this file earlier there was nothing, and now inside the same file we will have this data since we have saved it. Okay, if we go to this file and open it, you can see now we have this new text inside this file. Okay, so I hope you are getting it, what is happening here. So if URL is null, it means you have a new file. Okay, and you are trying to save a new file. In that case, this particular code will take place, where you will see a save as dialog box. So whatever data that is there on this text area, we are simply getting that and storing inside this content variable, and then we are simply writing the data inside this save URL, which is a file, right? And then we are simply closing that file. And if it's an existing file, suppose you have opened some existing file, in that case this if condition will become false, because in that case inside this URL we will have complete file path and not null string, right? In that case this else code will execute, and here we are firstly getting the content from the text area and storing inside this content variable. Then we are simply opening the URL in the write mode, and then we are simply adding the content inside it. I hope this is clear to you. Okay, so this is how we save a file, and now after this we need to work on the functionality of this save as command. Okay, so when I click on it, what should happen? Okay, so let's see. So let me just define a function here, def save as file. Okay, this is the function name, save as file, and here what I want, basically I want to see this same save as file dialog box. So I will simply copy it from here, like this, and I will paste here. Okay, so once you'll click on save as, we will see this save as file dialog box. Okay, after this we will simply get the content of our text area inside some variable, just like we did here. So we'll simply copy this line also and we'll paste here. After that we need to write this content inside this file. So we will write save URL dot write method, and to this method we will simply pass the content. So this content will now be stored inside this URL. Okay, and then we can simply close this URL. So save URL dot close method. So after defining this function we need to call it. So let's call it. So where we have created that, yeah, so this is our save as command. So here we'll pass command equals to save as file, like this. Okay, now let's run this code. If I open some file here, some existing file, okay, so this is the content inside that file. Now when do we click on save as? When we have to save this file with some other name, right? So right now the file name is Faizan, but I want to change it to code. Okay, with name code. So what should happen? This previous file should get deleted when I click on this save button, and inside this code file this particular text of Faizan should be inserted inside it, right? So if I click on this save button, let's see if the file is getting deleted. So see, file is not getting deleted, but this new file is getting created with the name code, and inside it we have the same content of Faizan. Okay, but what we want, when I save as with some other name, I want this previous file to get deleted. So what is the way? We'll go to the code and to this particular function only, save as function. Once we close our file, after that what we can do, we can use this os module dot remove. So this remove method is used to delete any file. Okay, we just have to pass the URL. So the URL is there inside this URL variable only. So when we are opening any file, so inside this URL variable we have the complete file path, and it's global, so its value can be used inside some other function. So we can use its value here. So we'll simply pass URL here, like this. So now if I run it again, if I open some existing file, suppose if I open this code file this time, okay, this is the text. Now if I want to save as, so I'll click on save as, and this time if I give some name here, some random name, okay, so what will happen once I'll click on the save button, this code file will delete it and its data will be inserted inside this particular file. Okay, so now if I click on save, if I show you my desktop, you can see the code file is deleted and the data of that code file is now inside it. Okay, so I hope you understood the functionality of this save as command. Okay, now one more thing, if I run this code, okay, if I open some existing file, suppose data, it has this content. Now if I click on this new, so what will happen, this data will delete and it's deleted, right? Now if I write some other text here, suppose this one, since it's a new file, so we should see a save as dialog box when we click on the save button, but we are not seeing that. Why is that? Because inside the URL variable, when we opened that data file, so inside that URL variable we had some text, sorry, some URL, right? So that URL is not getting deleted when we are clicking on new file. So you can see this, that inside this data the text is updated here. So this is not what we want. So what we will do, basically we'll go to this new file. Okay, inside it, whenever the user clicks on this new file, what I want, if there is some URL, okay, I want to make it null. Okay, since it's a new file, so there shouldn't be any URL inside this URL variable. Okay, and I will make it global so that this value, null value, can be used inside some other function. Okay, like this. So I hope this is clear to you. Now if I do the same thing again, if I open some existing file, data file again, suppose, okay, now if I click on this new file, okay, and now if I write some text and click on this save button, this time we will see the save as dialog box. Okay, because inside this that URL variable, now we don't have anything. Okay, so this is a new file, so we can give any name to this file and save it simply. Okay, new file. I hope this is clear to you. So before moving further, let me tell you one more thing about the save as file function. If I run this code, since it's a new file, let me just type some text here. I am a good boy, like this. Okay, suppose the user clicks on save as command instead of save. So what will happen? We will see a save as dialog box. This is fine, right? Now I can save this file like with some name temp. If I click on this save button, you will see an error. So the error says the system cannot find the path specified null, and this error is coming in line 43. So if you see line 43, this is the line where we are asking the operating system to delete or remove this particular URL, right? So we have written this code when we have some URL inside this URL variable, right? When we have some path for the file inside this URL variable, then we want this thing to take place, right? Then only we want the previous URL or the previous file should be removed. Okay, but what if it's a new file? So if it's a new file, I'll apply a condition here that if URL is not equals to null, okay, so if URL is not containing null, then only delete the file which is at this URL. And if the URL is null, it means it's a new file. In that case, we don't want it to remove anything. Okay, so now you won't see that error again. Let me run it again. Let me write some text here. Hello. If I use save as, now you can see we are getting save as dialog box. Let me provide a file name here, file, and if I click on save, now you won't see that error. Okay, I hope you are getting it. So if it will be an existing file, then previous file will get deleted and that data will be entered inside a new file, whatever name that you will give. And if it's a new file, right, and if it's a new file, then the data will simply be inserted in inside this particular file only. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. And now after doing all these functionalities, we are left with this exit command functionality. So let's work on it. So we will be defining a function here just like we defined functions for others. So I'm gonna give it a name, iExit, like this. So what functionality do we want basically? So we will check if any changes are being made on the text area or not. Means if the text is modified or some text is entered there or not. Okay, and if some text is added or modified, then in that case we will show a message box that do you want to save this file. Okay, and if the user says yes, in that case we will simply add that content to that file. Okay, and if the user says no, then we will simply close our window, right? So firstly we will apply a condition that if text area dot edit modified method, okay, this will simply tell us whether the user has made any changes on our text area or not, whether he has added some extra text or deleted some text or modified some text, whatever. Okay, so if that is the case, then this will become true, right? So if this becomes true, then what do we want? We want to display a message box, right? So we'll use this message box module. Okay, this message box is not yet imported, so we need to import it. So let's go at the top. Just like we imported font, color chooser, file dialog from this tkinter, in the same way we will import message box. Okay, now we can go back. So here what we are going to do, as you see the error is gone, so we are going to use one of the method of it, ask yes no cancel, this one. Okay, so we will see three options there. So first one would be yes, then no, then cancel. Here we have to pass two things, first the title and second the message. So the title would be warning, okay, and then the message would be do you want to save the file, question mark. Okay, so this ask yes no cancel method returns true and false values. Okay, so if you will click on yes, it means you want to save this file, so it will return true, and if you will click on no, then it will return false. And let's see what it will return when we'll click on cancel. So for that we can store this in some variable, okay, result, and if we print it just to see what is inside this variable. Now if I run it, and before running it, let me just firstly call this function, otherwise this code won't be executed. So I'll go to this exit command, okay, and here I'll pass the command equals to I exit. Now if I run it, so without doing any modification on our text area, if we directly try to click on this exit button, see nothing is happening. Okay, so we have to do some modification in order to execute that particular code that we have written, because the if condition is not becoming true in this case, right, when we are not doing any modification. So let's do some modification, like if I add some text here. Now if I click on that exit button, it will work, right? So as you can see, the title is warning, and then we have a message, do you want to save the file? So if you'll click on yes, then you will see something getting printed. Let's see what we have. It says true, right? Now let me do it again. If I'll click on no this time, let's see what is getting printed. We are getting false, right? What if we click on cancel? So when I clicked on cancel, we are getting none inside this variable, right? Where we have defined it, yeah, here. So inside this result variable, we are getting none when we are clicking on cancel button. Okay, so instead of printing, we'll check here that if result is true, okay, it means you have selected yes option, it means you want to save that file, right? So if you want to save that file, then what we'll do, we'll firstly get the content from our text area. So we'll write text area dot get method, and from start till end we will get all the content, and we'll store the content inside this content variable. And then after that, there can be two scenarios. First scenario can be whether it's an existing file, and second scenario can be whether it's a new file. So what we will do, so if the user is selecting yes, after that we will check that if this URL variable is null or not. So if it's null, it means it's a new file, right? And if it's not null, then it's not a new file, right? So firstly, let's write the code when the URL is not null. So if the URL is not null, it means it's an existing file, right? So if it's an existing file, we'll firstly get the content from the text area, then we'll simply open this URL. So for that, we'll use open function, right? And here we'll pass this URL, and in which mode we want to open it? We want to open it in write mode because we'll be writing the data. Okay, so our file will be opened, and that file I'll store in this file variable. Then I just need to write the content to this file, okay, just like we did earlier. So I'll write file dot write method, and here we'll simply pass this content like this. And at last, once the content is inserted to this particular file, then we can simply close our window. Okay, so we'll write root dot destroy method. Okay, so I guess it's clear to you that do you want to save the file? This will be the message. So if you'll say yes, then the content will be saved to that particular file. Okay, if it's an existing file, okay, and then our window will simply be closed. So let's see if this functionality is working or not. So firstly, I need to open some existing file. So if I open this file, okay, inside it we have hello, right? Let me add some more text. This is a file. So as you can see, I have done some modifications here, right? Now if I click on that exit button, it says do you want to save the file? If I say yes, then you will see that inside that file we are having a new line, okay, updated line. So I hope this is clear to you. So this functionality is properly working. And now what if it's null? So we'll simply go to the else part, and in the else part we'll again get the content from the text area. So I'll copy this line and we'll paste here. After that we will open that file dialog box, okay, so that the user can enter the file name since it's a new file. So I'll copy this line from here, okay, then I'll paste here. So when the user will write the file name, that will be saved inside the save URL variable, or you can say the complete path will be saved inside it. Then we simply need to write to this URL this content. So we'll write here save URL dot write method, and here we'll simply pass the content. Then we'll simply close this file, and after that we'll simply close our window. So root dot destroy. Okay, so if it's a new file, then file dialog box will open where you need to enter the file name, okay, and to that particular file name we are simply adding this content that we got from the text area. Then we are simply closing that file and then closing our window. So the two scenarios we have added here: one, when our URL will be non-empty, means it's an existing file, and then second, when our URL is empty, means it's a new file. After this, what if the user selects no option? Okay, so if the user selects no option, we'll apply a condition here: elif result is false. So make sure you provide proper indentation. If result is true, then this code will be executed, right? And if result is false, it means you have selected no, then we will simply destroy our window we will not save anything. Okay, after this you can also write else condition if you want, for the cancel one, right? So if the user clicks on cancel, then this else code will execute, and in this case you can simply pass, means you don't want to do anything, right? Neither you want to close the file or you want to save anything, so we'll simply pass, we'll do nothing, right? Now what if the text area is not modified, right? If text area is not modified, then we'll simply go to the else part, right? So we'll write else part here. Okay, I hope you are able to understand it, that if text area is not modified, in that case we'll go to the else part, and in the else part, so we'll simply close our window, right? Let me show you these functionalities quickly. So if I'm not typing anything, it means we are not modifying our text area, so we'll simply go to the else part, last else part, and our window will be simply closed, right? So this line is getting executed simply, all the rest code is not getting executed, right? This I already showed you, that if text area is getting modified and if it's an existing file, then this particular code will be executed, right? What if it's a new file and you have modified it, then this particular code will be executed. So let's see. So if it's a new file, like this is a new file, okay. Now if you click on this exit button, it will say, do you want to save the file? I'll say yes. So we are getting a save as dialog box, right? Here we need to enter the file name, new file, okay, and we can click on the save button, and our window is getting closed at the end, right? So now we can go and check that file. So if you open this new file, you see we have a data, this is a new file, right? After this, we can also check this functionality if this is working or not. This will work when you will select no as an option. So if inside result will get false value, then our window will simply be closed. So suppose if you have modified some text here, like if I have written some text Faizan, and if I click on exit, do you want to save this file? I'll say no, then our window is simply getting closed. So I hope this is clear to you. This is how we have to do the functionality of exit function. Okay. So as you can see, our file menu is ready. Okay. We have added functionalities to all these commands. Now let's see the functionality of this status bar. So what we want to do here, let me show you my original project, what functionality I have added to this status bar. So this is my original project. Here you can see if I'm typing some text here, what is happening on this status bar. Here you see characters count we are getting and words count we are getting. So this is the functionality that we have to add there. So basically I want my status bar to show me the number of characters that I am typing and the number of words that I am typing. Okay, so as you can see, there are 2 words and there are total 10 characters including spaces. Okay, so if you'll count including spaces, there will be total 10 characters. So let's add this functionality there. So first of all, I'll define a function. Let me define it at the top here. Okay, so def status bar. Let me add a function here also, so that it's much clearer to you. Status bar function. Okay, and what functionality we are going to add here. So inside this function, we need to count the number of words and the number of characters that the user is typing inside that text area. So how can we get that? So firstly, let's see how we can calculate number of words. Okay, so we have our data on our text area, right? So we need to firstly get that data. So text area dot get method, and we'll get from start till end everything, right? So this will return us a string. Okay, what we are going to do, we are going to split that string. So this split method will simply convert that string to a list, right? And we can store that list in some variable and we can print it just to see what is there inside it. Okay, so if I simply write it in Word, so Word is a variable and inside it we are simply storing this list that we are getting with the help of this split method. And if I print this variable, okay, we also need to call this function. Okay, so how we will call it? We need to call it with the help of our text area. Okay, so if I try to call it from here only, so if I write text area, you can see we are getting red line because this variable is not defined here. Okay, so we need to call it through text area after we have defined our text area. Okay, so where we have defined our text area, just below that we can use it. So here if you see we have defined our text area here, so this variable can be used just below it, okay, or inside any function we can use it. So if I use it here, so I'll write text area dot bind method. So we are simply binding text area modification to a function. So whenever you will modify your text area, means whenever you will add some text or delete some text, then this particular function will be called. So the way is we have to mention like this, modified. Okay, so whenever you will do any change on your text area, this function will be called, which is status bar function without parenthesis. Now if you run it, okay, and if I type my name, you will see on the console something getting printed, but instead of that we are getting error here. So it takes one positional argument. So whenever we are binding something, okay, it simply passes some argument that we need to receive. So we'll receive in some variable event. Let's run it again. If I type my name, now let's see what it is printing. It is printing the initial letter F only. So we are going to apply a condition here that if text area dot modified, okay, edit modified, so it means if our text area is modified, then only execute this part of code. Okay, means the user is typing something, then only try to do this thing, that split of text into a list, okay, and then we can print it. And if it is not getting modified, then we are simply going to pass false value to this edit modified, like this. Okay, now if I run it again, so it says invalid syntax, I need to add colon here. If I run it again, if I type my name again, let's see what we are getting. So what is happening basically, every time you are typing a letter, that letter is getting inserted inside this list, okay, and at the end you will get the complete list of whatever you have typed. So since you have typed two words, so Faizan and Khan, okay, in the form of a list. So if we count the length of this, we will get what? The words, right? Since there are two words, so length would come 2. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are simply going to calculate the length of this like this. Okay, so inside this word we will simply get the length. Now to get the number of characters, what we can do, again we need to get the content first of all from the text area. So we'll write text area dot get, and from start till end we'll get the content. Okay, and if I store it in some variable characters, okay, and if I print this just to show you what is there inside this variable, okay, if I run it now, if I type my name, Let's see what we are getting there. It says Faizan Khan, right? So this is there inside this characters variable. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are simply going to count the length of this. So if you see, the length is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So if we include this space also, then the length is 11. Okay, so how can we calculate the length? We just need to pass whatever we got from the text area to this len function, like this. Okay, now if I print this characters variable, if I run it again, if I write my name again, now see what is there inside it. So it says 12, but instead of 11 we are getting total length as 12. Why is that? Because at the end there is also a new line character which is also getting counted here. So in order to remove that, instead of end, what we'll do, we'll write end minus 1c. 1c means last character. Okay, one character. And what will be that one character? It will be a new line character. Okay, so from the end we are simply subtracting the new line character. Okay, let's see what we will get this time. If I write my name again, let's see. So now you can see we are getting total 11 characters. Okay, because we have removed the new line character from the end. This is the way. And if you are interested to calculate the characters without including the space, okay, in that case what we can do, we just have to use one method here, which is replace. Okay, and to this replace method we can replace this space with nothing. Okay, means we'll simply remove the space like this. So this is the way of doing that. Okay, now we need to actually provide a space like this here. Okay, so we are simply removing the space. Let me run it again. If I write my name, this time you will see 10 characters if you will only count the alphabets, right? So you see we are only getting 10 this time, right? So at last we are getting 10 characters because we have typed total 10 characters. Okay, so I hope you understood how we are getting the number of words and number of characters. So this is the way. Now we need to update our status bar with number of characters and number of words. So what we are going to write here, we'll write status bar, okay, dot config method, which is used to update something, and here we need to update the text. So we'll write text assign, and we'll use f string here. Okay, f string is used to concatenate variable and string. Okay, so here the string would be characters colon and then the number of characters. So number of characters are there inside this variable. So in curly braces we have to use the variable name like this. Okay, so we are simply combining this string with this variable with the help of this f string. Okay, and then we also need to add words. So words will be inside this words variable. Actually it's a word variable. Okay, or you can change it to words like this. Okay, so now if I run it, you see we are getting status bar right now, but once we start our modification, so once you start the modification, this condition will become true, right? That you are now modifying something on our text area, so this code will be executed. Okay, and when you will not modify anything, so its value will simply become false. Okay, so now if I run the code again, if I write some text, so you can see it is working fine. So we have typed 10 characters and there are 2 words here. Okay, similarly you can continue typing. So I hope this functionality is clear to you. firstly we simply calculated words, right? Okay, and then we simply calculated characters, and then we simply added the words and characters on our status bar. We have simply updated our status bar. I hope this is clear to you. So in the next video we will work on the functionality of this edit menu, view menu, themes menu. Okay, do like this video and let me know in the comment section if you have any suggestions. So thank you for watching.